What makes this exchange so important isn't just the tension, it's what that tension reveals about the crossroads America now faces. Senator Jack Reed isn't simply questioning Pete Hegseth. He's confronting a growing movement that wants to redefine the military's values, rewrite its history, and reshape its culture to fit a political agenda. Reed is fighting for something older, deeper, and more sacred: the idea that the U.S. military belongs to the Constitution, not to one ideology. From the moment Reed reads that threatening email directed at a serving officer, the entire tone shifts. Because this is not a hypothetical. Someone out there felt empowered enough to tell a service member that they would be removed, punished, and even denied their pension simply for supporting Department of Defense policies that have been in place since the 1940s.
Think about that.
Policies rooted in the military's proud legacy of integrating troops, ending racial discrimination, and ensuring equal opportunity are now being twisted into accusations of betrayal. And Reed's message, though delivered calmly, is unmistakably urgent. When fear becomes a tool inside the military, democracy itself begins to decay. Reed brings up decades of history because context matters. People forget that the military was among the first major institutions in America to desegregate. Long before the Civil Rights Act. Long before schools integrated. It was the military that said we fight stronger when we fight side by side, regardless of race. That decision didn't weaken the force. It strengthened it. It made America more unified, more capable, more respected abroad. And when administrations, Republican and Democrat, protected those anti-discrimination policies, they weren't being woke. They were being patriotic. So when Hegseth tries to argue that today's DI efforts divide troops, Reed cuts through the nostalgia and the deflection. He points out that Hegseth's own public writings don't argue for meritocracy. They argue for ideological purification. They label officers who support diversity as enemies. They equate fairness with weakness. And they rebrand inclusion as infiltration. Reed forces viewers to see what's really happening. A political movement is trying to weaponize the military's culture war, and that has always been the greatest internal threat to any democracy. Then Reed makes a point that many people miss. Once you politicize the military, you risk losing the very people who hold it together. Officers who begin receiving these threats will think twice about whether the institution they love still has space for them. Retention drops. Morale suffers. Cohesion fractures. And the ones who stay are pressured to align not with professionalism or ethics, but with the dominant political voice. Reed understands something profound here. The most dangerous army is not the one that is undertrained. It is the one that is politically captured. And then the conversation shifts into war crimes, and Reed exposes an equally serious divide. Because when Hegseth boasts about helping secure pardons for individuals convicted of violating the laws of war, Reed asks the question that cuts to the bone. What do you say to the soldiers who reported those crimes? The ones who did the right thing? The ones who honored their oath? This is not abstract theory. These soldiers risked everything: career, safety, respect, to uphold the law. They saw wrongdoing and they spoke up. That is integrity. That is courage. That is what the U.S. military teaches from day one. But when political leaders intervene and overturn those convictions for ideological reasons, they send a devastating message. Loyalty to an individual matters more than loyalty to the rule of law. Reed understands why that matters. Because the moment soldiers fear repercussions for reporting misconduct, the entire system of accountability collapses. Hegseth talks about dust on boots versus air-conditioned offices, but Reed sees through the glamour of battlefield rhetoric. American power is not just measured by how hard we can hit. It is measured by how responsibly we wield that power. The laws of war were not written to restrain warriors. They were written to protect America's moral legitimacy. To ensure that when the United States fights, it fights with discipline, not vengeance. With principle, not indiscriminate force. You cannot claim to strengthen the military by undermining the very codes that keep it honorable. And when Reed pushes Hegseth on why he disparages JAG officers, the very people entrusted with ensuring lawful conduct, Hegseth refuses to explain. And that silence says everything. Reed exposes the underlying strategy: discredit the watchdogs, elevate the loyalists, and replace ethical guardrails with ideological loyalty. That is a blueprint for authoritarianism, not constitutional service. Reed's closing message becomes clear without him ever raising his voice. A military that abandons discipline, rule of law, and inclusion doesn't become stronger. It becomes unmoored. And once that foundation cracks, the consequences are not political, they are national. America's credibility, alliances, and moral authority depend on maintaining a force that reflects the nation's values, not one faction's will. If there is one lesson viewers should carry from this moment, it is this: the institutions that protect democracy must themselves be protected from politicization. Diversity is not the enemy of the military. Division is. Accountability is not a threat to lethality. It is its companion. And the rule of law is not an obstacle to victory. It is the only thing that ensures our victories mean something. If you want to understand how democracy defends itself, watch moments like this closely. And if you want more commentary that reveals not just what happened, but why it matters for the future of the country, make sure you stay with us. Because the stakes are too high to look away now.